Ladies and gentlemen, let me start by saying something simple but revolutionary. You only need 2 minutes to change your life. We are often waiting for the perfect time, waiting for the motivation to strike, for the schedule to clear, for the fear to subside. But what if I told you that all it takes is 2 minutes, not 2 hours, not a weekend retreat, just 120 seconds. The power of 2 minutes. Every moment counts. 2 minutes can start a change that lasts a lifetime. Let's talk about time. Not as a calendar, not as an obligation, but as a choice. When I say 2 minutes can change your life, I'm not being poetic. I'm being precise. Psychologically, we know that the brain thrives on completion. Even the smallest act, done with full intention, sends a signal. I showed up, that matters, because showing up, even briefly, trains your mind to believe that you are capable of consistency. And consistency, more than motivation, is the root of transformation. Now, here's what's fascinating. 2 minutes is below the resistance threshold for most people. It doesn't feel overwhelming, it doesn't feel threatening, that's why it works. You're not battling your whole day, you're just honoring 2 minutes. And within that window, when you read a page, move your body, breathe deeply, or simply speak truth to yourself, you're no longer stuck. You're in motion, momentum has begun. Philosophically, it reminds us of presence, of how easily we overlook the now, waiting for a perfect later that rarely comes. 2 minutes forces us into presence, into intentionality, and once you taste the power of small beginnings, you stop waiting for permission to change. You realize everything starts the moment you stop waiting. Micro-habits, massive impact building consistency through small daily actions leads to long-term transformation. One of the most overlooked truths in personal growth is that you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits, and those habits, they begin with something as small as 2 minutes. Micro-habits, tiny, consistent actions, are not about changing your life overnight. They're about changing the rhythm of your day, which over time will change the direction of your life. It's easy to dismiss small efforts. The mind wants dramatic change, big gestures, but the brain, your actual neurological system, responds best to repetition, not intensity. A daily act, no matter how small, wires itself into your identity. Let me give you an example. 2 minutes of intentional reading each morning is not about the information. It's about the declaration, I am someone who learns. 2 minutes of movement doesn't make you an athlete overnight, but it signals, I respect my body. What begins as a whisper becomes a pattern. What becomes a pattern becomes a lifestyle. So when people say, will this really make a difference? I say, only if you do it every day. The transformation isn't in the minutes, it's in the message you send to yourself. Small acts done daily are the foundation of extraordinary lives. Overcoming procrastination, 2 minutes of courage can break hours of hesitation. Procrastination isn't laziness, it's fear in disguise. It's the mind's way of protecting you from discomfort, from the unknown, from the risk of failure. But here's the truth, you don't have to conquer the entire mountain today. You only need to take one intentional step. And that step can take just 2 minutes. Psychology calls this the activation energy barrier. It's the mental wall between intention and action. And it's almost always higher in our minds than it is in reality. The brilliance of a 2-minute commitment is that it lowers that barrier. It becomes too small to fear, too quick to dread. You're not writing the book. You're opening the document. You're not committing to a full workout. You're putting on your shoes. These tiny beginnings rewire the brain's association with effort. They turn avoidance into approach, action into habit. It's not the size of the task that breaks procrastination. It's the willingness to start without expecting perfection. And once you start, something shifts. Momentum takes over. Clarity grows. You begin to realize that fear loses its grip the moment you face it head on. So the next time your mind says not now, answer with 2 minutes of courage. That's all it takes to go from stuck to in motion. Intentional living start with 2 minutes of clarity to live the next 24 hours with purpose. Every day offers you the chance to choose how you want to live it. The challenge is, most people don't choose, they react. They wake up and immediately absorb noise, news, notifications, demands. But 2 minutes of intentional stillness can interrupt that cycle. It gives you space to ask the question most people never ask: what do I want to bring to today? That's not a grand philosophical inquiry, it's a simple daily reset. A moment to align your inner world before the outer world takes hold of you. Neurologically, this pause matters. It shifts your brain from reactive mode, what psychologists call the default network, into intentional mode. It tells your system, I'm not just surviving this day, I'm shaping it. Even 2 minutes spent in reflection or breath can realign your focus, your energy, and your mood. That's not self-help fluff. It's neuroscience. Philosophically, it's the essence of living on purpose rather than by accident. You don't need to control the entire day. You just need to begin with clarity. When you start from intention, everything else bends toward it. So take those 2 minutes, not to fix the whole world, but to return to yourself. Your direction begins where your attention rests. Healing starts small. Emotional and mental healing doesn't need a marathon, just a moment of reflection daily. Healing is often misunderstood. We think it has to be dramatic, loud, public. Something we declare only after we've conquered the pain. But real healing, the kind that lasts, begins quietly. It begins in moments of truth with ourselves. And often, those moments are no longer than 2 minutes. 2 minutes to sit with what hurts instead of pushing it away. 2 minutes to breathe through the anxiety instead of numbing it. 2 minutes to say, this happened, but it does not define me. What we're doing in those moments is incredibly profound. From a psychological perspective, we're creating safety within ourselves. The nervous system begins to recognize that we can hold discomfort without running from it. That is the foundation of resilience, not avoidance, but presence. And there's something deeply philosophical about that too. It says, I trust that even my smallest efforts matter. I believe that showing up for myself in a quiet, daily way is enough. You don't need an audience for your healing. You don't need perfect words or a perfect plan. You need willingness. You need presence. You need 2 minutes of honesty a day, because sometimes the most powerful act of healing is simply choosing not to turn away. Healing is often misunderstood. We think it has to be dramatic, loud, public, something we declare only after we've conquered the pain. But real healing, the kind that lasts, begins quietly. It begins in moments of truth with ourselves. And often, those moments are no longer than 2 minutes. 2 minutes to sit with what hurts instead of pushing it away. 2 minutes to breathe through the anxiety instead of numbing it. 2 minutes to say, this happened, but it does not define me. What we're doing in those moments is incredibly profound. From a psychological perspective, we're creating safety within ourselves. The nervous system begins to recognize that we can hold discomfort without running from it. That is the foundation of resilience, not avoidance, but presence. And there's something deeply philosophical about that too. It says, I trust that even my smallest efforts matter. I believe that showing up for myself in a quiet, daily way is enough. You don't need an audience for your healing. You don't need perfect words or a perfect plan. You need willingness. You need presence. You need 2 minutes of honesty a day. Because sometimes the most powerful act of healing is simply choosing not to turn away. From excuses to action, you don't need more time. You need more intention. 2 minutes is enough to begin. Excuses are persuasive because they sound like logic. I don't have enough time. I'm too tired. I'll start tomorrow. But if you examine them closely, they're not grounded in truth. They're grounded in fear, perfectionism, and self-protection. What breaks the cycle isn't guilt, it's action, not grand, overwhelming action, but something as small as 2 intentional minutes. That's where the shift happens, when you stop negotiating with delay and start building momentum. From a psychological standpoint, this is critical. Action requires belief. The more often you take a step, no matter how small, the more your brain begins to trust that you are someone who follows through. You're no longer waiting to feel ready. You're no longer trapped in the illusion that more time means more change. 2 minutes used well is often more powerful than 2 hours wasted in hesitation. Philosophically, it asks a simple but transformative question. What if you already have enough to begin? No special moment is coming. The conditions won't ever be perfect. But you are here. You are breathing. And you have 2 minutes. Don't let the habit of waiting become the story of your life. Take 2 minutes. Start now and let action speak louder than excuse.